Hi, I'm Debbie and welcome to my studio. Wanted to share a project with you today that I got the idea for this project while I was at the store and I saw some Christmas decor set up. They had this beautiful vintage quilted stocking and I thought, oh, that's so pretty. And I went over there and I looked at the price and it was a pretty price too. But when I saw it, I thought, you know, I can do this. Got an idea. I remembered I had an old quilt at home that I just did not have the heart to throw away. And that old quilt, let me show it to you, it's right here, has some beautiful colors on it. And this one's a king size quilt, so I could make millions of stockings out of this. But as you can see, my poor quilt is threadbare. It's just, in sections of it, it has started to fall apart. And like I said, I just didn't have the heart to throw it away, so I just kept it folded up in the cupboard thinking one day maybe I'll make it into a smaller sectional piece, or I can go back in and mend it or do something to it. It's just an old vintage quilt and I really loved it. So when I saw that stocking, I thought that's what I'm going to use for my project. And this is what the stocking turned out to look like. This is my vintage quilted stocking, and that's what we're going to make today. So easy. You're just going to need a piece of, let me kind of go over the supply list. You're going to need like a piece of brown butcher paper. I've got one right here, and this is what I did is I drew my pattern and I just drew a sock. I didn't have one. I mean, if you've got a Christmas sock at home, you can lay it down on the butcher paper and trace it. If you do that, please add 1/4 inch for the seam allowance, okay? But that's what you're going to need is some butcher paper, even an old grocery bag. Just open it up, lay it out flat, use it for a pattern. You're going to need some vintage quilting. You can go to the thrift store, see if you can find one that, you know, that appeals to you. They're a little bit harder to find. You can also go on Etsy. I know they sell what they call quilting cuts, or what they call it cutter quilt. And you can also get some on eBay. What they do is they take old quilts like this and they will cut out the sections that are good and they'll sell those sections. You know, or you can even go online and just buy an old quilt. A baby quilt, also another good idea if you have a quilt maybe that your child used when they were little, or a baby blanket. And it's getting threadbare, and what better way to take that blanket and turn it into something that they can reuse, and that's, you know, it's got some special meaning and memories to it. So what you'll do is get your quilt, get your section, like I say, eBay, Etsy, I've seen it there, or try the thrift store. And then you have your pattern. You're going to need some pins, a good pair of cutting scissors, because these quilts are a little thick, and so you've got to really have a good sharp pair of scissors to get through these quilts. And then you're going to need some scrap fabric. I used, for the back of my sock, I used what's called home decor fabric. It's a little bit heavier weight of a cotton fabric. Doesn't need to be pre-washed or anything. These are just for decoration. They're just hanging. They're not for wearing. I had a scrap, and it doesn't matter which way the grain of the fabric goes. You can use just the scrap. Again, you're not washing or wearing these. And then you're going to need something for the lining. See the inside of my sock? And what I had, again, was another scrap. And so if I were to tell you to go out and buy fabric for the back and the lining, I would say 1/4 yard for the back here, which is going to be more than enough, and 1/2 yard for the inside of the sock. Again, if you can find some scraps at home, it'd be easy. Also, you could take for the inside, if you have an old work shirt or something, you know, that's got a nice design to it or a pattern, you can cut that out and stick it on and use it for the inside. So anyway, that's what you're going to need. Really simple project. I think it turned out beautiful. I love it. It's going to be so cute hanging up on the fireplace. And because you're just using the straight stitch, just any old sewing machine will do. This project will probably take you about 10 minutes, literally. Once you get it all cut out from start to finish, you could make a whole bunch of these. The beauty of this project too, it's endless as to what style of sock you get. You know, I've seen people put like the curly toe that comes up on it. You can even do smaller ones if you want to make individual gifts for friends or family. And that, or else, like I say, this is just one that I've just hand drew, rough cut it on there, and I'm really happy with the size of it. So let's go ahead and get started, and we'll make our vintage quilted Christmas stocking. Okay, first things first, to start with our stocking, you're going to need a pattern. This is a pattern that I drew up myself and just cut it out. You can use an old stocking as a pattern if you'd like. I just used some butcher paper. When I drew this, this was the actual size I wanted my stocking. So I know that when I'm cutting this stocking out of the quilt, I need to add 1/4 of an inch all the way around so that my stocking will come out the actual size of what I wanted. Not too concerned about the top if it comes down a little bit further, but just more concerned around the edges. So go ahead and draw yourself up a pattern. And then what you want to do, got your pattern ready. We're going to go ahead and get the quilt out here and get part selected. I have an old quilt. Oh, it's heavy. There we go. This is an old quilt that I got. I've just had it forever, and I was going to throw it out, and I just didn't have the heart to. When I saw this stocking in the store, I thought that'd be perfect for my quilt. As you can see, it's got batting coming out. It's ripped edges. So what you're going to want to do is find a section on the quilt that is not too damaged. Like, here's a good section right there. I can see a good section right here. So what I'm going to have to do is maneuver this big old monster around. This is a king size quilt, so boy, it is quite a bit to work with. So let's go ahead and find that section. I kind of like this one right here, but there's some damage. You just got to find a non-damaged corner. Oh, here they are. They're down on this side. There's some beautiful right there. I'm liking that because you know, there's no damage to it, and it's not threadbare, and I like that. Also like the colors in it. So let's see what we got over here. Another piece right here. So we're going to start with this piece right here. It's easier to get to. And let's throw this quilt out here. Oh, hopefully without hitting all the camera equipment. There we go. All right, just a little bump on the camera, not too bad. Let's get that quilt over here. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm liking this piece right here. And so what I want to do is lay my pattern piece on, and this is like where I've got to kind of think about what direction do I want my pattern hanging when it's hanging from my fireplace, you know. So that's kind of something you want to think about, or from your staircase, wherever you handle your socks. For me, it doesn't really matter because I will turn it any way I want when I get it there. And what I'm thinking is when I'm looking at the pattern on the quilt, I've kind of got to look at my pattern here. And I want my heel to go right here because I want a lot of color in my sock. So I'm going to kind of go, I think, right about there. That way I'm getting a lot of color. And I'm going to go right up to the top there. Let's go ahead, get our pins out here and pin that down. There we go. And the whole time keeping in mind that I've got to go my 1/4 of an inch more. Let's get that pin out of the way with the scissor. Alright, I think that's good enough. Now, oh, here they are. Let's get our scissors out here. Good pair of sewing scissors, and we're going to just start cutting through here. I feel so much better about using this quilt for something productive than to throw it away. Like I said, I'm just kind of eyeballing this, but I'm going a 1/4 of an inch bigger. Following the shape of the stocking. When you draw yours, just draw yours a little bit bigger. A little bit of work, that thick quilt behind it, but I think you're going to be really happy with the results. All right. So now we've got that all cut out, and again, one a little bit larger, so let's just get this quilt out of the way. Watch out there, Mr. Tank. Mr. Tank's in the studio with us today. So if you hear some snoring, that's who it is. Just want to trim that up a little bit. Alrighty. Well, it looks like I'm going to lose a little bit of stuffing here. And if you get that problem where you see maybe some of your stuffing coming out, what you can always do is just sew along that edge real quickly and it'll hold that stuffing in. Either that, or you can just kind of pin it as a reminder of that's what you need to do to make sure that stuffing doesn't come out. And if it comes out, it's not a big deal. What I'm going to do is take this paper pattern off now, because I've made this one 1/4 of an inch bigger. I'm just going to use my fabric stocking for my pattern. Let's get the garbage out of here. Now what we're going to need is we're going to need a backing for this, for the back side of our stocking. And I recommend a home upholstery fabric because it's thicker and heavier duty to help hold your sock together when you're stuffing them. I don't know, some people don't really stuff their socks. I do. So you want a good sturdy fabric. And I got to get that straightened out there. It's making me crazy. And that didn't help. Let's go ahead and go here. Boy, this is thick. There we go. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I've gotten a scrap of fabric. This is just a scrap that I had. It's just some like home upholstery fabric. And what I recommend, like I say, is the thick one. If you're going out to purchase fabric to make this project, I would say, you know, I always go a minimum of a 1/2 yard on anything I buy because I always like my leftovers. So that's my recommendation to you, is a 1/2 yard. That way you're not going to be short. And then when you're doing this, you're going to want to go right sides together. Oh, it looks like we got a stain on our quilt, but it doesn't matter because that'll be on the inside of the sock. So you're going to want to go right sides together so you'll kind of see what's going to be on the back of the stocking, if anybody ever goes looking at the back of your stocking. I don't know, but I'm kind of liking that right there. Let me get this back together. Yeah, right there. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and cut this using my stocking as my pattern. I'm not worried about grain line, as basically as the grain of the fabric. I'm not worried about any of that. This is not going to be worn. This is just for decor, and it's going to hang just fine. So go ahead and take any scrap if you've got any and face it any way you can just to get it to fit. Alright, almost done. Just got to do the little bit of the toe here. Alright, now that's a good scrap. We can use that for something. So we'll throw that in our scrap pile. So now what we've got is we've got the front of the sock and the back of the sock. I'm going to set those two right up there. And now we need our inside. And the inside I just used a regular cotton fabric for. And again, just used another scrap that I had. And that scrap was this right here. That'll be kind of fun. I think we'll go with that scrap right there. Again, I'm not worrying about the grain of the fabric, just that my sock will fit on there. So I'm going to just go ahead and take this piece, and we're going to go ahead and make 2 of these. I just doubled it over. We're going to make 2 because those are going to be the inside of our sock, okay? There we go. This isn't rocket science, boy, I tell you, these socks are really fun and really easy to make. pin your fabric down. I usually don't. I just kind of work without it, but if you're going to be turning it and twisting it, it's probably best to pin it down. Okay, again, a nice good piece of fabric scrap here. I'm just going to cut this off. That's good size. I just like to trim up my scraps so that I don't have a mess. And this is always good for edging or anything, you know. And what we're going to need for this stocking is a tab. And the tab will hold the sock, you know, on the fireplace or the mantle or wherever you're wanting to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this piece, and I'm going to go about, I would say 8 inches long. So let's see, there's, I'm going to go 9. There's 9 inches right there. And I'm going to go about, let's see, 2 inches wide. I'm just squaring this up in the corner, kind of getting an idea of where 2 inches is. Again, not rocket science, just get one that's looks like it's about 2 inches. Now, what you're going to do with this particular piece, which is going to be the tab that hangs it, you're going to fold it in half, and you're going to press it with your iron. Press it there. And basically what you're making is you're making a piece of base tape, basting tape. So you're going to go ahead and press it there, and then press these in to the center of that line on both sides. You know, you do one side at a time. So I'll press that one, then I'll go back over, I'll press this one. Once they're both pressed like that, you are going to turn them like that and stitch along here. As you can see, you'll stitch along there. So get your ironing machine out and your iron out, and make sure you have everything pressed because you don't want any wrinkles in your pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to press these up, and I'll be right back in one moment. Okay, so I've gone ahead and pressed this. As you can see, it's nice and sharp edge on here, and what I'm going to do is sew down this side, and then I will just turn it and stick it in the stocking. So we're going to go ahead and set this aside. Now, what we've got is our pieces here, and I'm going to kind of give you an idea of what we're going to do with those. What we're going to do is we're going to take these two with the right sides together. And this again is the inside of your sock, okay? Just line them up. There you go. And then you're going to go ahead and sew all around the sock, but leave right here a 5-inch opening. I would say about 5 inches. So you want to sew to here, leave the opening, and then continue sewing all around here. I use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So that's what we're going to do with this. We'll take this over to the machine in just a moment, and we'll do that. We're going to do the same with the sock. Putting right sides together. I should say with the quilt part. Putting right sides together. I'm going to flip it over so I can see my quilt. That way I make sure I'm getting right on the edge, right where I want it. And that quilt is just falling apart a little bit, but see, I've got this pin on here, so I know that I'm going to sew this edge right here real quickly before I do this. I'm just going to sew the edge of the quilt so I don't lose any of this stuffing. But that may not be the case in your situation. You may not have that. So go ahead and sew all the way around this one. Do not leave an opening. No opening at all here. Because the opening over here is for pulling the sock inside out. So what we're going to do, like I said, we're going to take it to the machine, do a 1/4 inch around here, 1/4 inch around here, leaving the 5-inch opening right here. And we'll come back and I'll show you how to assemble it. Okay, so what I've done here is I've gone ahead and sewn a 1/4 inch. Let me just kind of get that up there so you can see it. Hopefully it's not blurry. But I've gone ahead and sewn a 1/4 inch all the way around the sock, leaving, and this is the inside of the stocking, remember, leaving this about 5-inch opening right here. This is so I can turn my sock inside out. And then I've done the same. I've sewn around all the way around the stocking here, okay? So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to put this little tab in. And I'm going to go ahead, like I said, and sew down the side of that, and then I'll show you how to put that tab in. Okay, got my little tab here. What I did, like I said, I sewed it. And I like to sew mine down both sides. After I sew these pieces, you know, sew that closed, then I kind of flip it over and sew it again, just like a nice finished clean look. So I want you to go ahead, put your loop. And what you're going to do is you're going to take your quilted or your vintaged quilt section of the sock, and I want you to pin it right on the seam. See the seam that runs down here? You kind of want to pin it about right there, and you can use a pin or a clip. Right there. Head back over to your machine once you get this pinned on there, and stay stitch that in place. And you're going to want to run a couple of stitches back and forth, so that that's good and solid and secure in there, okay? So we're going to go ahead and do that. I'll be right back. Okay, what I've done is I've gone ahead and put my little band on the inside, lined it up with my seam so it looks good, and I didn't turn this inside out or anything, so I leave this just the way it is. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our lining of the inside of our stocking, and I want you to pull it inside out. Alright, and just kind of reach in there and straighten out all the little corners. Because what we're going to do is we are going to take this part of the stocking and we are going to insert it into this quilted or the quilt part or the vintage quilt part. And we're not going to turn this inside out or anything. We're just going to take this and stick it right inside of there. Okay, so stick your arm in there, get the toe right down there to the very bottom, hold on to that toe and insert your stocking. So now once you get that done, I want you to take the top and line up your seams. Okay, line up your seams. Put a pin in it. Line your seams up over here. And then what I like to do is ease this in. You may have some dimpling, it doesn't matter. It's all going to be on the inside of the stocking. You won't see it. And I just like to pin right here a little bit. And I'm just kind of working on that to get that. Got a little wrinkle right there. I want to get that in there. So now you've got your lining inside your stocking. You're going to go over to your machine, take your 1/4 of an inch, sew all the way around the top, completely enclose it. And when you're sewing, you may want to back stitch again, just right there over where your little tab is, okay? So head over to the machine, let's get that done. Okay, so I've gone ahead, put that in there, and sewn around my edge. A little bit of advice here. Beautiful thing about this project is you don't need a fancy sewing machine. All it is strictly a straight stitch. And when you're sewing around here, all you need to do is just kind of carefully fit it through your machine. It'll work out beautifully. It's a simple project. So I want you to reach inside now, and you'll fill the hole. Put your finger through the hole that you left in the inside of the stocking. Reach out, grab the toe of the quilted stocking, and start pulling. I want you to pull it all out like this. It kind of looks like a jumbled mess in the beginning, but it's like a magic trick. It's going to be beautiful. So you just keep turning, manipulate your fabric. There you go. And that's what you're going to end up with. It's going to look just like that. What you can do at this point is you can go over to your iron And again, because you've got the little slit here, reach on in there, put your arm in there almost like a puppet. Push out your corners, or your circles, your edges I should say. Push those out so you've got a nice rounded edge. Go over to your iron and press that so you've got a good finish on there. And press. You don't need to press this end. I would just mostly press this side, okay? Because we're going to tuck that right back in. I've got a little string here. I'm going to cut that off. I don't want any strings. So I'm going to go ahead and press this, and then we'll be right back to show you how to tuck. Okay. All right, here we go. I've got this. I've pressed it out really nicely. But what I did need to tell you was we've got an opening here still. So what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of tuck that opening in like this, wrong side, you know, tuck it in against itself, or else you could even leave the raw edges out. It doesn't matter. It's on the inside of the sock. No one's going to see it. You're going to sew that opening closed. So go ahead, let's go get that done, and we'll be right back to turn our sock out. Okay, I've gone ahead and sewn my lining closed. I sewed really close to the edge on that one, just wanted to give it a good finished look. And just a little heads up, when you're sewing, always do a back stitch at the beginning and at the end so you don't have any tearing or pulling away of your stitches. And so we've gone ahead and got that all done, finished it, and so we're going to start feeding it in to the sock, and just push it in there with your hand almost like a puppet, because you are done. Once you get it all the way to the end, just take a few minutes to get it in there nice and neat, because we're going to take it over and press it once more once we get it all in there. There is our socks back. We got the tab in there nice and secure, and this is what our sock looks like on the front. That is our Christmas stocking. I love it. It's perfect. And honestly, it'll only take you a few minutes. It took me a little bit longer because I was showing you the directions of it, but you're going to be just fine. You have a couple of options here. As you can see, look on down in there, your lining's in there nice and neat. If you wanted to, I guess you could pull this out even further and show your lining on this side. If you do that, your tab might be hanging down a little bit the wrong way, but it's still going to hold up there. You could pull that lining out and show some of that colorful lining from the inside, and you could even stitch around here if you wanted to secure it. I don't care for that. I want mine all in there. I only want to be able to see the quilted part. And then I'm just going to make sure again, just stick my hand in there, give it a good. Now I'm going to go over to my machine, to my iron, excuse me, and I'm going to just press that right there to give it a nice crisp edge. I'm going to press that. I'm going to lay the sock down, and again just press it all the way, and there we are done. You have a Christmas sock made out of a vintage quilt. I love this one. I think it turned out beautiful. I'm going to do a couple of more for the rest of the fireplace mantle. You know, I saw this in the store, and I knew it wouldn't be anything to throw together, you know, just a matter of getting the supplies together. But I think that it's a wonderful way to reuse old quilts. Also, I had an idea that you could do it with baby blankets. I know that my daughter used to have a baby blanket that she called the Jello blanket, and I wish I would have had that I could have saved part of it and made her a Christmas stocking out of it. I think that would have been really special for her. So this is our Christmas stocking. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Well, thank you for coming by the studio today. I hope you enjoyed making your stockings today. I went ahead and made another one. I'm just so thrilled with these. They're so much fun to make. And if you have any questions, please feel free to call me. Otherwise, I hope to see you here again in the future when we're doing a lot more wonderful projects. Have a great day. Bye.